We know life can be messy, and that's why you need a plan. Here at the Lifestyle Group, we want to meet you where you are in life and help you create the best home remodeling plan for your lifestyle. To us, plan is more than just a word. It's an acronym we live by for our clients. To always be prepared, to lead you through the process, to adapt to what you need, and to make sure there are no surprises. Each month on the Do You Plan podcast, we'll look into home remodeling projects that have inspired us, taught us, or can teach you for your future home remodel.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. So, total transparency for the audience. We've known each other for 20 years, probably, maybe a little bit more.
98.
Okay, so I wasn't around. See, you predate me. So I would have met you in 99. So you were a year ahead of me. Probably a lot older than me, but a year ahead of me. Yeah, I joined the Builder Association in 1999. Really got active in 2000. So I probably would have met you in 2000, I would guess, on the board. And so we've known each other for a lot of years, seen a lot of different things together. And I've always enjoyed having conversations with you about just business in general, kind of off on the side. And if I have an issue, I know I pick up the phone and call you, and I'll walk away thinking. So the idea with what we're doing with the podcast, it's a little different. I had Ryan Geltz in on a prior podcast recently, and in doing that podcast with Ryan, I didn't know him as well. So it was interesting to kind of learn a little bit about his business and have him talk through his business in a way that would help clients understand decisions related to audio, video, and home technology in general. And I'm going to kind of take the same path with you. And I just want to talk about your business and at an early, in the early part of the conversation, I just want to talk about how you interact with clients and position product and hopefully make people aware of some of the things that you do, not selling it, but just talking about it and how people make those decisions. And then I want to migrate the conversation to running the business and having maybe a bigger picture conversation about that. But why don't you start, if you would, by introducing yourself to the audience in a way that they at least walk out of here knowing what your business is. And talk a little bit about the types of products that you offer as you introduce your business.
Sure. So I'm Brian Adams with Godby Hearth and Home. We have been around for a number of years. The name Godby is familiar to Indianapolis because there are 3 separate companies that all have that name. There's Godby Home Furnishings, Godby Hearth and Home, and Godby Heating and Air. And so the name people recognize, but they don't necessarily understand the differentiation between the companies.
Did you do that on purpose? How'd you pick the name?
That's great. So I purchased the company from Dennis Godby in 98 and, thought about changing the name, but the name at the time, Tom Godby had run the HVAC business. The Godby Home Furnishing name was out there. It was like, why would I spend tremendous amount of marketing dollars to rename a company that already had a well-recognized name, identified in the market with a good reputation?
So I've learned something already that I didn't know, which is that it really did have initial ties to the same Godby family that had those businesses.
Sort of.
Okay.
So Tom and Dennis Godby started the HVAC company back in the early 70s, Godby Brothers Heating and Air.
Okay.
And Godby Hearth and Home was a spinoff in 1987 of that company. They divided up the company. He took this fireplace division, which was not a big piece of the company, but at the time, that's what he took and started his own company. Off to the side was Godby Home Furnishings, which was a family out of Sheridan, Indiana, based, I think, out of Lebanon. Different family. Okay. I'm sure they're different, distant relatives, but nobody really knew the connection.
Yeah.
So there were always these 3 independent companies that everybody thought was under the same umbrella.
Okay. So take me back for a minute to pre-1998 when you were in the work world doing whatever you were doing and how you migrated to a place where you bought a fireplace company.
Oh, it wasn't a childhood dream. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, for me, it always has been, but I wasn't sure for you.
So my background is when I went to college, I got an accounting degree. And the idea for me was my father and two of my brothers ran a small business in Plymouth, Indiana. And I just really enjoyed the aspect of small business, family-owned companies. I worked there for a year out of high school, decided that's not what I wanted to do. It started staying in my hometown. So I went off to college, got an accounting degree, and came to work for a company in Indianapolis that was a regional company, not a large company, not a national CPA firm, but a regional company that dealt in closely held businesses, because that's what I wanted to focus on. Mm-hmm. So that was 1983. I moved to Indianapolis, started a job in 1987 when Dennis and Tom split. Dennis hired my accounting firm to handle his financial statements, tax reporting, all that information. So that's how I got to know Dennis, was from 87. And in 94, Dennis approached me at the time. He was ready to move on. He was fairly burnt out. Didn't have really a succession plan at the time. Needed somebody to come in and run the business. Over the years, the 11 years I was in public accounting, I had offers from several clients that wanted me to become their controller, corporate controller, CPA. And that's really not what I ever wanted to be. Mm-hmm. So Dennis came in and said, I will give you the opportunity to run the business, which was very intriguing to me and something that I really wanted to challenge. And the caveat to it was after a period of time that he would offer, if he wanted to sell the business, I would have the first rights to buy that business. And that's how it evolved. So I joined Dennis in 94 and ended up buying him out in 98.
It's really interesting. I had a somewhat similar path. Not exactly, not that this conversation's about me, but similar background anyway. Was a banker. My father, we looked at businesses. We looked at a number of different things just as I was doing commercial lending and seeing things and seeing financials and understanding businesses. I always envied the new home builder that was building about 5 houses a year, running around in jeans in the summer when I was in a suit and just kind of doing his thing. I envied it for what seemed like a casual business. Never would have ever thought that I would have gotten into the business. But then all the years later, my parents went through a nightmare remodel in the late 90s. And next thing you know, started a little remodeling company on the side, kept our jobs at the bank, and eventually it grew quickly and had to leave our job at the bank. And that was that. Then I was a remodeler from there on, trying to figure out how to do it. But so it's interesting that we have a similar path in that started with a business background, looked at it for the business element. And it was almost, I always have looked at these things like it's just a different widget, right? You know, whether it's fireplaces or a kitchen or a bathroom or whatever the product is, you still have to be good with people. You still have to be able to position product and take care of people and really do what you say you're going to do to be successful in anything. So it almost doesn't matter what that thing is that you're selling.
Yeah, I agree. And I always tell people that the reason I wanted to own a business because I knew I was a terrible employee. I mean, I did not like to follow rules. I didn't like to keep the status quo. I was always wanting to challenge people to do more, to do better. Some people, some people are in a career for one purpose, and that is to an income stream. That's what they want. And I always felt like I wanted something more than that. So owning a business, a small business especially, made a lot of sense to me. And you're right. I mean, it doesn't matter what the product is. The elements of growing a small business are the same. Mm-hmm. You know, it's developing people, it's developing relationships, it's networking. It's continuing to stretch yourself to improve the company. It's scaling it. All those things still have to occur no matter what the company is.
Yeah. And we'll probably talk a little bit more later, but owning a small business and having the ability to impact culture and impact other people in a way, in a positive way that sometimes gets lost in a corporate structure. is something that really appeals to me in that process. And I know just knowing you like I do, your personality of kind of just growing people and trying to constantly being innovative and trying new things is part of one of the things that I really enjoy about learning or enjoy learning from you. So talk a little bit about your product offering as it stands today, so people understand the types of things that you do. And then maybe in that context, talk about how it's evolved. Like, where did it start and how does it evolved for you?
Yeah. So it's, in the last 30 years, since Dennis broke off on his own, it's evolved tremendously. I mean, Dennis walked out of Godby Brothers Heating and Air with basically basic wood burning fireplaces. And at the time, it was a product called a heat form, which is basically a big metal box, heavy gauge steel, that a mason would actually set on blocks and brick and mortar around it, put a clay flue liner, but it built the cavity of the fireplace, if you will, and allowed for fan system to be put in a heat form concept. And that was the original manufactured fireplaces. So when Dennis started the spinoff, the only product he had was fireplaces, and he was putting them in primarily in new construction and primarily in production homes. And it was a real basic 36-inch wood burning box, and he'd buy them by the truckload and he'd install them, continuously throughout the day. He evolved then into the next product through a customer that wanted him to provide additional services. He started providing wire closet shelving. So it's that, you see it, it's very common in a lot of homes. And so that's what he started doing. So those were his two product categories. He tried to supplement the fireplace business by installing tile around the facing of the fireplace, installing pre-made mantles, that type of stuff, real basic, simple things. And so it was more of a volume business at the time.
And primarily through builder relationships?
Yes.
Okay.
After he, 2-3 years after he split off from Tom, he actually realized that he wanted it to be more. He felt like fireplaces should be more of a centerpiece of the house than what it's being shown. He wanted to put it in a position of kitchen cabinets where there's selections being made and people could see the differences. So he took the initiative of building a 4,000 square foot showroom. Actually, at the time, it was 3,000 square foot showroom on the west side of Indianapolis on Rockville Road, which we're still located there today, between Country Club and Girls School Road out on the west side. And that showroom was one of the first true fireplace shops in Indianapolis that was actually built to be high-end custom. Dennis was from the west side, and he felt like he wanted to represent the west side. And in some ways, that was a good place to build. In other places, based on the way the Indianapolis grew as a market, wasn't the best place to be. But he built his showroom. It was beautiful. I mean, it was marble floors. It was marble around these large opening fireplaces. He brought in fireplace from Denmark called a Bolet, which was a custom built fireplace. So it was in its day, it was a very unique place, and especially different than most fireplace shops you see, which were normally wood stove shops converted into fireplaces. So they were kind of small, a lot of open displays, not a lot of much around them, that type of stuff.
Yeah. And then over time, some things have stayed very much the same, right? Like I still walk into your showroom on Rockville Road today and I see fireplaces of all types. So that selection and that variety is still very much intact from the original vision. But then you've expanded beyond that as well. Where you want to start? You want to start talking about how fireplaces evolved? You want to start talking about let's start by talking about the other things that you offer. And then I want to come back and I want to get more into product evolution, but let's let people know the things that you do.
So we have the real product that we offer, I tell everybody, is installation and service. We are, I think, a little unique in the construction industry that all the products that we sell, we install with our own employees. We don't subcontract any work. So you're getting that turnkey approach to our product. So if we'll sell it to you, We'll order it for you. We'll deliver it to you. We'll install it for you, and we'll serve it for you. And I think that is, I'm not saying it is unique in the industry, as you know.
Sure.
You have a lot of products that you buy from one place and have a different company install it. So that's the premise of our business, is to be turnkey for our customers. And what happened was we looked at things that would add on to our business. So for example, when you're a fireplace business and you're dealing in an Indiana building cycle, what happens? Everybody starts building houses in January, February, weather permitting. So you have everybody in the framing stage, late first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, they're finishing their houses. Then the fourth quarter, they're trying to get slabs or basements in so they can keep framing through the winter.
Right.
Pretty typical. Well, that was our revenue cycle. So when you're only dealing with a product that is going into the framing stage, what was happening is our revenues would peak and dip with the framing cycles. So we were struggling with having maybe, let's say, 6 to 7 strong months a year, fall, or with sandwiched 5 months in between of low revenue months. Mm-hmm. So we started thinking about that and saying, we have this revenue base or this labor base. We have it 12 months a year. We have talent. Our brand is to install product. So let's find some other products that we can match up with the house. Well, we started out with, we had wire shelving, which we had been doing. And we had a lot of competitors in the market at the time that installed the wire shelving. They would also install mirrors, shower doors, custom glass, bath accessories, that type of product. So we decided to expand that division into those product categories. So back at 98, we started selling shower doors, mirrors, custom glass type work. And it was a great ad for us because if you think about the building cycle, now we have a product or a series of products that we can sell in the closing stages of the house. So it was to balance out that revenue stream and to utilize our labor force in a way that now we're more maximizing, our capacity.
Makes sense. When did you get into some of the outdoor products and the grilling phase and the things? And I know we'll talk a little bit more about kind of that evolution with supply chain challenges as well, but when did you incorporate some of the outdoor elements to your business?
So the outdoors, I always call that those are our fun products.
Okay.
That's what we do for entertainment. That's what makes us fun people. So we got into.
Does it work?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm fun. I just don't know if my wife feels that way. So I really think that it happened right in 94 when we had the showroom. And a lot of people in the hearth industry at the time, they obviously, if you had a hearth store around the country, you had a season in the fourth quarter or through the winter months, you'd sell a lot of product, but the summer months were slow. So again, in that vein of trying to streamline or even your revenue flow, a lot of hearth stores were carrying gas grills, they were carrying patio furniture and summer type products, umbrellas, whatever. Mm-hmm. So we obviously gravitated towards and it's kind of interesting because our association, the Hearth Products Association, when I joined back in the, what was going on in the 80s and 90s, today merged with the Patio Association. So now it's called the Hearth Patio Barbecue Association. So there were so many companies that were in both industries that that's what they decided to do. So we got into patio furniture heavy. We got into patio and into gas grills in a heavy way. We even sold gas lights. We were just trying to support the gas products side of the business. And at the time, you remember all the fireplaces were virtually wood. Right. You could put gas logs in them, but everybody was buying at the onset a wood burning fireplace. So we got into it in 94. And it was a fun product to sell. It was much easier to sell for us. And it was a product that was basically out the door. So, we would assemble it, we would deliver it, but we were done with it. Mm-hmm. So it was never a huge piece of our business, but it was something for us to talk about and would get people in the store in the summer months. It was a way to get our name out there. At the end of the day, it didn't fit our brand for the most part because our brand is to add value to the product. We add value to the product by providing information, providing installation, providing fabrication, providing service. And those are the products that we've always excelled when we sell those. We can't add value to a patio set. It's very difficult. Back in the 90s, when gas grills, a high-end gas grill was actually installed in the ground in an in-ground post, and that was it. It was a freestanding grill and a post. There wasn't a ton of value there either for us to be able to add. And now that's, as you know, has changed in that industry, but in that product category. But really, that's what we were dealing with. And so over the years, we had that in there, but it never became a key component of our sales.
Let's talk a little bit. I want you to touch base and go into a little detail on your Cliff Rock product, because that's a product that we've incorporated now in a couple of different projects in a couple of different ways. And I want you're going to be more eloquent explaining the product itself, but I think I'll just state that we've done outdoor grilling islands with it. We've done basement mantles with it, but why don't you talk about the product itself and how you're weaving that into what you do? Because I think it's a really good product.
So we've always been associated with the outdoor living arena and with the grills and the patio furniture. So for years, people have associated us there. But again, the products we had didn't really fit what our brand was.
Right.
So we have always been on the lookout for product that we could add to that product category, outdoor living, rather than just being a supplier. So we came across this product about 3 years ago. It's called Cliff Rock is the manufacturer. It's basically a lightweight concrete with a fiber material in it that allows you to make a lot of product, very durable product that would allow you without carrying the weight of traditional stone or block or brick. So it allows us to build things, and it comes in powder form. We have molds. So we have the ability to form it, to modify the design of it, to the size of it. So we have this very high level of fabrication that we do, as well as staining it to a color scheme that someone may want. So Cliff Rock is a product that's a product for everything. So we started implementing it into different aspects of our existing business. So we were selling grills, but we never had a good grill island product. And the element is when people come in, they love looking at built-in grills. But if you're not going to provide the island, now they have to go somewhere else and source the labor.
Right.
Cliff Rock for us now allows us to bring somebody in, and they can actually design the size, the shape, the number of accessories that they put in this grill island, and even the color scheme that they would want. And we can actually pour the molds, cut it, form it, put it to the shape that they would want. So now all of a sudden we become a turnkey, and we're adding value to that whole outdoor grilling concept. We've done with you, we did a grill island with you, but then also we do fireplace walls. So what happens is we've had a lot of people coming in that, we're doing a lot of remodeling now with tearing out existing fireplaces and upgrading those fireplaces. And people are wanting to know what to do with their facing. Well, as you know, sometimes stone is an option, and sometimes because of the weight, stone is not an option. But people are still wanting that look. They're wanting that stone look. It's come back, I don't know, what has it been, 5-6 years now that it's really come back strong. And people want that. So this would be a product that we could install on a wall, and it would carry its own weight. So it would not require any footers or anything underneath to carry it. For a while, the barn siding look was extremely popular. It kind of went with the shiplap. People wanted the barn siding. So we have a barn siding mold that we can pour. In traditional barn siding, you can't put around a fireplace because it would ignite and burn the house down.
Right.
Well, this product being a concrete, we could put it around the fireplace so that it gives you the look you want with the specs of the fireplace requirements. So we have just dove into this in the last 3 years. We're at the home show this week and here at the end of January, and we actually have we built boulders, free-handed built boulders that could be landscaping boulders to create privacy around a patio. They could be around a pool. gives people a lot of options to create some outdoor landscape without tearing up their whole backyard. I mean, as you know, most landscape projects, either you just build a little deck and put something on it, or you go in with some bobcaps and you tear up the yard and you start pouring footers and you make a train wreck of the place. We're in between that. People can put our Cliff Rock Islands on decks, as you know.
Yeah.
People can put them on a poured patio. We can build fire pits for people. We can build boulders without tearing up the whole backyard. So it's really become an accessory product for people to enhance maybe what they already have in their yard.
And you can do water features and fire rocks and those types of things with that product?
Absolutely. We can do, we can actually build them to do, and the beauty of it is they're actually hollow. So we can put pump systems in them. We could put in, have a water flowing system, do a catch basin, let it filter back through with the pumps. Fire pits are easy. It's a non-combustible product, so we can build a fire pit, put in a gas burner or a wood. If you want to burn wood with it, it doesn't matter. So it really is, it's really a unique product that allows us, and what we love about it, it allows us to be creative with the customer with it. We can build anything they want. We had one customer that we ended up putting one wall in their shower because he wanted this rock wall concept in his shower. So it's a poured product. It doesn't really need a membrane or anything. So we install it in the back wall of his shower. We had another customer that wanted certain color schemes on these post columns that she had in her basement. And she wanted oranges and blues. Well, you can't find any kind of a natural stone that's going to have that color scheme. So we wrap the columns in a Cliff Rock and stain the stones color orange and blue.
So do you have the ability to like finish the edges or are you doing miters on that product, or how, when the edges come together on that around the four sides of the column, you get a clean finish, I guess is my only question. Yeah,
you do. Actually, what we do is we build it on site once we pour the molds, and it's working with Play-Doh. Actually, we mix the Cliff Rock. We put we put them together. We secure them. We can secure them with wire, rebar, and we actually mud in the corners before we stain. And so it looks like it truly wraps. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that fabrication on the end where we finish it off before the staining process.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Okay. Talk about your mix of products. Like in today, are you like with everything that you touch, are you 60% fireplaces? Are you 40% fire? Like I don't have any concept for how much you do of what or what drives your business.
Yeah, it's a movie. It's moving.
Okay.
It's fluid. We analyze the company in a lot of different ways on revenue. One's product, one is customer base.
Okay.
And the product, it's hard to measure them dollar for dollar. But Fireplaces still probably leads the way in our product categories. And it's what we're known for. People recognize the name as it relates to Fireplaces.
I was curious about it only because I know you do like a ton of custom shower glass, but I felt like Fireplaces probably still drove it just because of the investment that you can make in some of these units now as people are building new homes and wanting to go to larger boxes or linear fireplaces and all the different concepts that you can engage in out there. So I was just curious.
To give you a perspective on the fireplace world, which I always say that, the fireplace manufacturers, they trail the HVAC guys in technology probably by about 10 years. It just seems like we're never ahead of the game. So, but in the fireplace world, back in the early 2000s, there was a technology that's called direct vent technology that all the manufacturers believed was the technology of choice going forward. And the way the technology works, it doesn't exchange any air with the room. It's a fairly high level of efficiency. So they just poured all kinds of R&D money into that technology. And if you go out, that's the linear, the long, narrow fireplaces that you see. Most of those are direct vent technology. So most of the fireplaces you see on the market today is that technology. And the reason they've expanded that, now people have a lot of choices. When I got in the business in 94, you could buy a wood burning fireplace and it would be either 36 inches wide or 42 inches wide. And if you wanted to put a door on it, that was an upgrade. Today, it is all over the board. We are putting in fireplaces of all shapes and sizes. In the last 5 years, we are now doing custom fireplaces. There's manufacturers out there that are actually building them custom for a particular home, for a homeowner. We've done this past year alone, we've done 3 commercial projects. It's kind of funny, one at IU, one at Purdue, and one at DePaul, all college campuses that are trying to upgrade their dorms so they'll attract kids. So
putting them in the common areas.
Yeah, they are. So it's really kind of, and we've done a couple down at Butler. So when you get into that range, so to give you a perspective, is the average fireplace that we sold back in 94 was probably $1,000 installed. We've probably put in at least 5 fireplaces this past year that the price was over $50,000 each. The most expensive was $90,000. They're just all pure custom, and they've really evolved. So when you get into that product category, I mean, that's the big difference. So in fireplaces themselves have just grown tremendously in what they offer.
So when I asked the question of how you sell one product off of another, I really don't even like the word sell, because honestly, it's driven by what the customer wants or needs. But how are you positioning the products in the marketplace now, from when it's appropriate to use a direct vent, when it's appropriate to just slide in an electric insert? Like what types of clients are asking for what types of things, and how are you meeting those needs?
So I hope none of my current customers listen to this, but there's a couple things we talk about on the sales team all the time. And the biggest thing we talk about is most customers don't know what they don't know.
Sure.
So it's our job to strategically, professionally, and objectively educate them on something they already believe they have an understanding. So we talk about this every week. We do not have salespeople in our company. The people that meet our customers first, their job is to provide people enough information so that they can make an informed decision. Yep. And that's how we educate. And the education comes into, where do you want the fireplace? Where's the fireplace located? What do you want to achieve with this fireplace? Is it the focal point of this wall or an accessory to this wall? Do you currently have a fireplace? What is that how do you use that fireplace? Is it only used on Christmas and Thanksgiving, or is it used every day of the winter? You get up and drink your morning coffee in front of this fireplace. What are you looking for aesthetically? Do you want a big, roaring, blazing flame, or do you want something that has a great ember bed look that is just pleasant? Those are all questions that have to be asked on the front end. And once we get an idea, it happens. It's one of the things that I do when I meet with customers the first time. Hopefully they have some form of prints. So we go through the prints, and obviously we're looking for application. Our job is not to tell them aesthetically what they want, but we're looking, without telling them, looking at what the application, what best fits. And we basically go through and talk about, it's pretty simple. There's basically 5 technologies on fireplaces. There's wood, there's direct vent gas, there's B-vent gas, there's vent-free gas, and there's electric. And we go through and explain those technologies and how they work, why they work, and the differences in them. Not that one's better than the other. It's just, what are you looking for? Then we break it down into the product categories, which there's basically 4 product categories. There's a freestanding stove. There's an insert, which is a product that truly goes inside an existing fireplace. There's a fireplace itself. And then you have your gas log medias. And we explain the concept of what those are. Once people understand that you have in each product category, for the most part, has each technology. So once we explain the technologies in the product, we narrow it down. And usually we can get it within one product category and 2 technologies.
Okay.
And then once we do that, then we start showing them product. Because if you show them product out of the gate, they will never catch on. They will become confused. They're trying to memorize things rather than understand things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a sales process that we've learned over the years that has allowed us to just help work the customer, down the road, walk them down the road, so that when we come to the end, they have a good understanding of what they want.
Right, and what's available to them with their application.
Right.
So, for instance, if a client says to you, "I don't want to rip out my wall, but I want a new look for my fireplace. It's dated. I want to get rid of the brass." You're immediately going to gravitate to what are my options where I don't have to rip out everything in this wall.
Correct.
Right? And then those options are going to take you, in your mind, they're going to take you where? Insert could just even be sometimes like a brand new set of fancy doors, right?
Right. That depends on the technology. If it's a direct vent, which is really a gas appliance, there's really not a lot we can do to the log set or the burner or change any of that.
Mm-hmm.
We can't get the brass removed, but there are what they're called they're screen fronts that can be put over the entire direct vent to give it a completely different look.
Yeah, maybe not as a percentage, but just as a general idea. How often are you tearing out fireplaces these days, as opposed to just creating a visual change of a box that's there?
So the direct vent technology and vent-free technology started in the mid-90s, right about the time I got in the industry. And it really expanded, starting about 2005. And so now you have this spread. You have some really basic builder boxes out there that, it just back then is you were checking the box. Do you want carpet or hardwoods? Okay, we want carpet. You need to pick a color. Do you want cabinets? Yes. Okay, what kind of cabinets you want? Then the check on the fireplace. Do you want a fireplace? Yes, we do. That was the only question they asked. So you got the fireplace. That was pre-picked.
Yeah.
So what's happened now is the technology has changed, and it's been in the aesthetics of these fireplaces are so much better than they were 20 years ago. People are coming in and saying it's time. The biggest thing I tell people is if you're tearing out the facing material, if you're tearing down brick or pulling a tile, now is the time to switch out the entire fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you put granite, marble, stone, tile back up over the old fireplace, you're not going to want to change it for another 20 years.
Yep.
And if that fireplace is really more than 15 years old, then this is the time just to bite the bullet and do it all. So we do a lot of that. I would say that we're probably doing 15 to 20 of those a year, easy. And those are the ones that are our leads, our sales.
Right.
Then we also deal with people like you in remodeling that are doing it, and we're just selling the product to you. We're not doing the whole piece. We're just being a part of that. So it's become a big part of our business. We even have what's crazy that's going on is we have people that are building new homes today, and they're not happy with the selection of fireplaces their builders offering them. So they're coming in and wanting to know what it would take to install a fireplace in a house that's less than 3 years old because it has no fireplace, which is no intriguing thing. In fact, last Saturday in our Carmel location, I had 3 people in all under that scenario. One was building currently and wanted to know what they needed done. And 2 other ones had a house that was less than 3 years old, and they wanted to get a fireplace installed because what was offered to them at the time of the building process was not acceptable.
Well, and I would imagine, depending upon the builder and the value that the builder places on that element. I often have the conversation when a builder's building a house, they're worried about a million decisions, right?
Right.
And so that still for some builders is probably a check the box item. The only difference might be today that they ask you, do you want the 36 or the 42? And if they build at a higher price point, they might have one other option as well, right? As the go-to.
Yeah. And every builder is different. I mean, I don't put builders in price points anymore. I don't put builders in volume anymore. I kind of put them in two categories. One is you're an option builder or you're a custom builder. And an option builder is a builder on every product category within the house. You have 2 or 3 options and you have to pick one of those. There's nothing beyond those 2 or 3 options. And those are the people that are coming into our store. A custom builder truly will look at the house and the design. And as long as the customer's up front on the front end and says they want something unique, then they are actually, those are custom guys. I mean, they'll reframe a wall. They'll change the location of a fireplace. They'll redraw the house to accommodate a different style.
Where it becomes a feature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of those customers in too, where they've selected the builder or they're finalizing plans with a builder and they get information and we give out pricing to the builder before they actually close the deal with the customer.
It's good that you're getting that early interaction with them and that it doesn't become a late stage decision too, for sure.
There's no doubt that, the internet has changed the world for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily, it tells people what's possible. It doesn't tell them how to do everything, but it clearly tells people what can be done. And I think that's changed our business dramatically.
I think it probably has too. If you think about just the visual nature of the mantle and the surround and the box itself, and you see, and obviously the HGTVs of the world and the house.coms and Pinterest and Instagram to an extent, like just the visual nature of people just scrolling through pictures and pictures and pictures. And if I'm building a living room and I know I'm going to do something with the fireplace, I've got the world at my hands to be able to see all these options. They inherently drive clients to even higher price point options as well. So that can't be bad.
No, it's not. You want to make sure that we're a piece of the house.
Yes.
And we need to understand how that fits. I mean, not everybody wants to blow their budget on a fireplace. It's really kind of ironic that it used to be that every house got a fireplace no matter what. I mean, I've been in houses, people would say, I really didn't want this, but the builder always puts them in, so that's what I got. But then in today's market, the fireplace has stepped back in, as you know, to be a key feature in about every house. But there are a number of people that do not want a fireplace. So it's really turned into, I really want to step up my fireplace and make it a feature, or I don't need one at all.
One at all, yeah. Kind of like tubs.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
It's exactly right.
Yeah, really. So let's shift the conversation to what you're seeing from a trend perspective in terms of style of fireplace that people are drawn to. Is the linear fireplace something that you think is going to be here to stay for a while for that contemporary look, or is it going to go by way of barnwood and stone glass mosaic tile that everybody's seen, and after 7 to 10 years it's probably going to have seen its day and move on? What's your take on just linear fireplaces in general?
I'll never forget the linear fireplace. The demand for linear fireplaces showed up about 2 years before we could ever get one. Linear fireplaces came from Europe. They're being built and designed over in Europe. And I'll never forget that back in about 2010, we got our first linear fireplace from a company out of Canada. And we were really ecstatic about it. Even that linear has evolved.
Sure.
So what I tell people is you have really 2 types of fireplaces, traditional and contemporary. And linear is a style of contemporary.
Okay.
It's not in and of its own, its look. So I believe that linear fireplaces will stay as long as contemporary styles stay. And so you know better than me, but a contemporary style is more of an open concept. It's more linear. It's not busy. It's clean. It's basic colors type stuff. Yeah. So as long as the overall house stays in that contemporary, I think linear fireplaces will stay. The things that have been interesting about linear that's evolved just in the last, 10 years, there's two aspects of them that have evolved. One is, and I never thought this would happen, they came out and all they offered was glass. Well, it's linear. You'd want this glass bed. It's going to glow. It's going to sparkle. It's going to be a very clean look. Yeah. And then they started introducing just some stones, just a few stones in there to give it another trendy look. About 3 years ago, they started offering a driftwood log set. Most linear fireplace manufacturers offer some kind of a driftwood to complement as a media to complement the glass and the stone. Mm-hmm. And it amazed me how many people take that option. It's really become, it's not a standard, but it's probably the number one option they change on these linear fireplaces because they're trying to make it transitional. Yeah. They can't get all warmer. The way to a linear fireplace. And then the other change that's happened is most of them, they would come out and they were, really to give it a linear look, you've got to have at least a 4 foot wide linear, and they go all the way up to, you can do custom, but standard boxes usually stop at 72. So you got a 48, you got a 60, you have a 72. But those, when they first came out, were only about 12 to 13 inches high. They were truly pretty narrow and gave you that really sleek look. What's happening now is they're raising them. So now a linear is going to be about 16 inches tall, 18 inches tall. Some of the 6-footers might be 20 inches tall. So again, they're kind of moving them back towards something that's more transitional. Mm-hmm. And because when you get a 72 inch linear and it's only 12 inches tall, it does look pretty skinny. So that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing some modification to the original product, but I'm not seeing it go away.
Do you guys touch or install a lot of 2-sided fireplaces or the see-throughs? Or is that a trend as well? Or is it just an application?
So see-throughs and peninsulas, whenever we talk to a manufacturer, there's usually a very limited selection in those two types of products, whether it's a see-through or a 3-sided, especially in standard boxes. In custom, you can build whatever you want, but in a standard box, they're usually fairly limited. Not a lot of options, not a lot of accessories you can put on them. So I always over the years, asked manufacturers about that. And they said that see-throughs and 3-sided are really more of a Midwest selection, that it's really not prominent throughout the U.S. So it's a relatively low production item. Mm-hmm. So they don't put a lot of money in R&D. They don't spend a lot of money updating them. I have some see-through fireplaces that probably, a very, how do I want to put this? So a direct vent that is one of the more popular sizes, styles, they're probably putting those through upgrades or new models every 2 to 3 years, new versions. Yeah. They're just upgrading, offering new media, offering this. I have some see-through fireplaces that probably they haven't been updated in 6, 7, 8 years. They're just not putting a lot of attention into those. Yeah. So we have them. They're not extremely popular like they were back in the 90s, but they're available. It's when you have an open concept, it's hard to put a see-through fireplace in because you have no wall to install it.
That's true. It's funny. I asked the question because it's one of the comments that I hear more often. Now think about it. The reason I'm hearing about it is in many cases we're going in and we're doing a renovation and sometimes we're taking walls out. Sometimes they've got the fireplace on facing one side and they're asking, can you make this a see-through so I can see it from both sides? And as soon as we start to talk a little bit about the cost of doing that, that conversation generally ends relatively quickly. But I just wondered if there was a market there for it or not.
No, so. I don't see that. We're probably turning out more than we're adding. Yeah. And you're right. It just defeats the whole purpose of the open concept. see-throughs, a lot of our fireplaces we take out, as long as we've got enough width and depth, we can put about any fireplace in. When you get into a see-through, the width isn't the issue. You have to have the exact depth. And usually that wall is not the exact depth that you need framing wise.
Yeah.
So now you're tearing out a whole wall to reframe it into something that fits.
That makes sense.
So the cost, it skyrockets.
So one other thing before we leave fireplaces, I want you to talk about outdoor living and just the emergence of outdoor fireplaces and how that fits into your world.
That's been very interesting. Outdoor fireplaces, they jumped on the scene when the back porches were being built, covered porches.
Yep.
Everybody got excited about that. COVID's accelerated them, right?
Very much.
Everybody wants to push them out there. And our industry is has tried to keep up with that, but again, we're behind. I don't know why, but we just seem like we can't get ahead of some of these trend curves.
So mostly masonry, maybe somebody's putting some gas logs in them and getting a gas line there. But for the most part, you're just seeing custom built outdoor fireplaces. It's not really a niche for you guys. Somebody's not going to necessarily call you and say, hey, I want you to come put an outdoor fireplace in for me.
So the freestanding ones that are at the end of a patio or something, we don't see a lot of those. And a lot of those are just masonry, and they're built as part of the package of redoing the patio and stamping the concrete, whatever you're doing, laying the pavers. On the porch, we're doing quite a few.
Yeah.
Now, on the porch, you basically are limited to two technologies, wood or vent-free gas. Or that's how it started out, wood or vent-free gas.
Mm-hmm.
And the wood people didn't like, because now they were building another chimney. And sometimes the way it was laid out, you couldn't put the chimney high enough to meet the code. So people were going to, vent-free gas, which is very simple. It has no flue. Mm-hmm. You basically frame it into a wall. The beauty of it is it does throw off a lot of heat. Mm-hmm. So it helps throw some heat into the room. But this is what we've run into in the last, let's say, 3 years. So everybody had this great idea of building all these porches. Well, we don't live in Arizona. We live in Indiana. They were, I think, quickly finding that the number of months they actually could use the porch because of humidity or cold or whatever was probably about 4 months.
Okay.
In Indiana, April and May are really beautiful months to be outside and enjoy the evenings. Mm-hmm. And September, October. Okay. That's about it. So a lot of these porches now were becoming enclosed. They were deciding to put your product, Easy Breeze windows.
Yeah.
They were putting regular windows. They decided to enclose them because they love the porch, they love the extra room, they love the concept, but they couldn't use it as frequently as they would like.
Right.
Well, that's created a whole nother nuance to our product, because the vent-free product that we were installing in all these new homes you cannot enclose a porch because it doesn't meet code requirements of the BTU of a vent-free. And it doesn't have what's called an oxygen depletion sensor, which is required on a vent-free indoors. So we've run into this nuance now, and a lot of builders have, and some remodelers that are enclosing these porches, and now you have a fireplace that cannot be used because of that. Mm-hmm. Now, the way the manufacturers have changed that in the last 3 years, which has been huge, is under certain applications, certain layouts, they're allowing us to put in direct vent product, which is normally installed inside a house. They're allowing us to put that in a covered porch area. There's certain issues as far as coverage and away from the edge so that you're not getting any kind of weather on it. But we're actually now, it's expanded the number of fireplaces or types of fireplaces we use in an outdoor area. And that's only happened in the last couple of years.
Are you guys doing a lot of fire pits, like selling the freestanding fire pits as an offering, or not really? Not really.
What our specialty in doing that is, a lot of times when you're doing a project like that, the landscaper is going to design a fire pit, build a fire pit. What we do normally is, once the gas line's put in, is we'll go in there and we'll finish it off, put a burner, lava rock, logs.
So you're doing
glass.
Pieces of it.
Yeah, we're doing the finish. Similar like a fireplace, we go
Yeah.
in and put in gas logs and a fireplace that's there. that's what we do with the fireplace. Once it's built, if they want to convert it to gas or put in gas, then we're set up and we go in and finish it off with the media.
Gotcha.
So the Cliff Rock product, we expect to expand. We've actually, again, people have wanted certain dimensions, certain sizes, issues with not having footers or being able to build something that's pure stone. So we're building a lot of fire pits with that. Another issue you run into is people want to put them under a covered porch. Well, a fire pit and the way it's burning is not designed to be in a covered area.
Yeah.
So people are struggling with that.
I know that we looked at one with you, and the cost to do one of the custom Cliff Rock fire pits was very similar to just going and buying a nice product, but you had total control over the size and look of it, so you could complement what was going on around it in the house, as opposed to buying a freestanding unit. So
size, shape, and color.
Yeah.
The three elements of what you want to do to customize something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we can provide with it.
Let's shift to shower glass, just because it's kind of a one-off that most people, they don't understand maybe the decision, the complexity of everything that we're doing with showers today and shower enclosures and all of that. So as a percentage, or as just a general overview, how often are you doing custom glass as opposed to a standard pre-purchased door that could go up the day after tile is done?
I would say over 90% of what we do is custom order.
Yeah. And I think our percentages are very high, and obviously you guys do all of those for us. But I think our percentages are very high in favor of the custom.
It's one of those situations where if you want a stock door, then you're probably going to buy a stock shower pan, either tile or fiberglass walls. So everything's kind of just set up.
Yeah, more basic.
And they're going to go. But as you know, you're building showers to kind of fit a room and a space.
Yeah.
So every shower you may build is roughly 6 foot by 4 foot, but you've got to decide half walls, full walls, direction of where it is, what you're leaving open. So you've got so many variations the way you're going to frame that it just leads to the shower doors being custom. I think the two biggest things in shower doors that people need to understand is, number one, it's tempered glass. So it cannot be fabricated once it's tempered. So that creates some limitations on ordering. We obviously have to have exact measures on ordering before we can do it. And then the other thing is the weight. It's not really designed to sustain its own weight, carry its own weight. I mean, a 3/8 piece of glass weighs 5 to 6 pounds a square foot. So you start adding that up, and you put together a panel, that's even, if you take something that's like 8 by 5, that's 40 square feet. I mean, you're dealing with a piece of glass that's probably approaching 300 pounds. So how do you handle that? How do you support that?
Right.
How do you stabilize that? All those things become crucial with it. But those are the two things people really don't probably consider when they're evaluating how to do that.
I know, just from my experience over the years with you, most shower glass, custom shower glass panel heights typically are 72 or 78 inches tall, 78 if they want to do a little bit of an upgrade for taller ceilings. How big can you make the glass? Because we're seeing homes, 10-foot ceilings. They're wanting to do steam showers, those concepts. How are you accommodating that for the homeowner that wants a dramatic shower with lots of glass?
There's a couple of different ways to handle that. I think what you run into really is since the way glass is tempered, it's cut and then run through an oven, and they heat it up to a certain temperature at a certain rate, and then they cool it at a certain temperature, certain rate. And that's how it changes the glass to be tempered. So your limitation is the size of the ovens in handling that glass. So normally we tell people that you're normally about 8 feet by 5 feet is about the largest piece of glass you could buy or have tempered. And it has to be tempered. You don't have any options there.
Right.
the struggle we have then is, especially in your case as a remodeler, is where is this bathroom located, and how do we carry this glass to that location?
To get it to the space.
Yeah, to get to that physical space. So, it's almost like you have to come out and audit the trail on where the bathroom is. If you have tight, narrow hallways, tight corners, you have an L-shaped staircase, how do you lift this thing? Again, 40 square feet, you're talking something 300 pounds that has no handles on it. How do you navigate that through a house? Even new construction, by the time we're putting this in, the house is finished. Drywall's in, carpet's in, everything's done.
Yeah.
Railings are in around the staircase. That's a big piece of, navigating the space. But as far as steam units, what most people end up doing with tall ceilings is they'll build a bulkhead. They'll drop down the ceiling so that you have the opportunities to put the glass up to it. That's the majority of the time is what's happening. We obviously, when you get into that, you're tiling the ceiling, you're tiling the bulkhead. Yeah. You're putting in a pretty good exhaust fan because you don't want to build up you want to make sure when you're done with that, haven't taken your steam shower, it truly dries out the shower. It doesn't build up any mold or mildew or anything.
Yeah.
So, but that's normally what's happening is they're building bulkheads to drop it down. You could always, except for the door area, obviously, you could always build some knee walls around.
Right.
That would
take
be
the glass up
2 to 3 feet high. So you'd still have the look, but you're not going to have and it would tie into the ceiling.
Yeah.
But before you start that, if you're truly tying into a ceiling, that ceiling needs to be framed in a way that we're going to hit studs and to tie that weight. Because again, 300 pounds, you're putting it, and then you're going to screw something into a ceiling and expect it to carry the weight of that glass flexing. So in fact, I don't know if you remember, we did a project over there on 86th Street in that condo. It was one of the first ones, and we actually screwed it into the ceiling. It was, I can't remember the name of that project over there, right over 86 and Ditch.
Oh, yeah. Thompson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember that? We took that glass all the way to the ceiling.
Yeah, we did the knee wall, the half wall, and took
did
it
the
up.
half wall,
Yeah,
and then we
pretty.
had the door itself was the height to the ceiling, but everything else was coming off that knee wall and tied into the ceiling.
Yeah. No, I still show people that picture a lot today just because it allows you to get some of that height. I was just hoping you're going to give me a different answer as we talked today that I could get a 10-foot piece of glass somewhere.
Yeah, I know. I got an email from Stephanie.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So she set me up on that. I knew what you were going to ask.
Oh, that's funny.
I think that it's, every job's different.
Yeah.
And every job, you just got to be creative. And we really, that's the fun part of our business is trying to think outside the box of how to make something work.
It seems like the more dramatic the showers get, the more questions we get about trying to find new ways to approach the glass issue. And then now they're doing some things with black elements on the glass, as matte black becomes a feature color in the line, and you see some really ornate shower glass options. That world's evolving too, in a good way. I mean, there's some interesting product out there for sure that really make a statement out of what used to just be a functional element being just the glass, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's, it sets off the whole bathroom.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does. The shower is usually, I love those freestanding tubs that have come back. I think it just adds to that openness feel. You're not feeling boxed in.
Yep.
It creates better dimensionally for you to be able to build that shower next to it. So features and, aesthetics on that. I cannot describe those. I mean, I can't envision that stuff, but I appreciate what you guys do with it. But the functionality of the shower is, we're just pushing the envelope. And there's a way you could use a little bit more metal and put some header systems in that would allow you to stabilize some glass. Mm-hmm. But again, it gets back to informing the customer. If we do it this way, this is the look you're going to get. If you want to do it the other way, this is the look you're going to get. I tell everybody we really should be engaged in the shower door discussion at framing stage, because if there is a modification like adding height to a knee wall or cutting a knee wall short to add some glass space, that it's easily done at the framing stage.
Yeah.
If I'm being called in to put in a shower door on one that's already tiled, I'm pretty much limited to what it is. We're not going to change we're not going to modify anything to accommodate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's shift the conversation to business in general. Kind of owner to owner conversation. And to start the conversation, can you give a little background to size of your company in terms of number of employees that you have now, and maybe where that was years ago and what that's evolved to today, just for scale?
Okay, so we currently have 28 employees. The breakdown on that is we have 6 salespeople. We have about 4 people in the office. We have 3 managers. Then we have myself and my VP of installation. And then the rest is warehouse installation. So about half the company is engaged in the installation of the product. We've been operating in that 20 range probably for the last 5 to 6 years. Mm-hmm. Our high water mark back in the 90s, early 2000s, was about 35 employees. Mm-hmm. And that was a challenge. It was just a challenge with that many employees. I think our sweet spot is this 28 to 30 employees is where we're set up now. So we have 2 stores. Obviously, we have the traditional brick and mortar showroom down on Rockville Road that's been open since Dennis opened it in 1990. And then about 6 years ago, we opened up a store in the Indiana Design Center, which we call our interactive studio.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I always find some point in this podcast process to talk about, the concept of the podcast is called Do You Plan? But the plan has a purpose behind it, because the P is prepare, the L is lead, the A is adapt, and the N is no surprises. And that's just kind of a cultural thing that we've done within our company. And so I always like to think about those lanes when I talk to somebody. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I find most interesting about you is when I think about preparing to deliver the business, and then I think about your ability to adapt to changing conditions, you're really innovative and you're aggressive about trying new things. And so tell everybody the concept of how you came up with this design studio, this interactive studio, because it's actually unlike anything that anybody else has really done in the marketplace that I've seen, and you've had success with it.
It was an interesting ride. So what I always told our employees, I've always stressed that, because everybody, and you know this, Jeff, when things are going well and when things are kind of moving through and there's no issues, everybody inherently just takes a breath and they take a break. But the environment's going to change in the next few years, and you've got to be ready for that. So I'm always stressing in our company meetings is we have to prepare for opportunities. That really good companies prepare themselves so when an opportunity arises, they can take advantage of it.
Right.
Whereas companies that are not prepared for opportunities will stay in their same mode the entire career, and nothing gets better or worse. It just sits there. So the interactive studio was driven by really the recession in 2008, 2012. I have talked for years about having a presence on the north side. And I alluded to it earlier where Dennis built the traditional showroom, beautiful showroom on the west side, but that's not where the market was. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to get somebody in Noblesville, Fisher, Cicero, Geist to drive what could be up to an hour to the west side of Indianapolis and not know anything about what they're going to see. They know there's a store there. Yeah. They know there's something there, but they're not going to drive. It just doesn't happen. I could spend $1 million in marketing on the northeast side of Indianapolis, and people are not going to drive there. And it's just the reality.
Right.
So we needed to have a presence on the north side. The recession hit in 2008. And as you know, the building business dropped off substantially. We went from 13,000 permits all the way down. I think our low water mark was 3, right?
Yeah.
So we were fortunate enough to have a retail store to start a business. So we started focusing prior to 2008. We did not spend a ton of time on retail as much as we spent on the builder business. But in 2008, we shifted. So obviously, like every other owner, looking at the situation, said, we have to change. We have to be ready to do something else. So what I did was I had a guy that was pretty sharp in technology in our firm, and I had to go out and buy an iPad. And I told him to download every photo that we ever had of any picture we ever did, of any work we ever did, or any product. Asked him to put all the website links on it. And we started selling to people in their homes. So we would get a lead and we would send somebody out that would spec out the project, whether it's a new shower door or a fireplace replacement or a fireplace door or whatever. And on the iPad, we would show them projects we've done. We'd show them brochures of options. We would show them go to vendor links, manufacturer links. And we started realizing that these people were pretty comfortable making decisions off this iPad, especially shower doors. I mean, I had this little toolbox tote that had, it had metal samples, it had glass samples, it had different hardware so we could sell. And we'd sit there and we'd say, okay, this is a picture of what you have, but this is a piece you're going to get, and this is your handle, and we were selling stuff. And I'm thinking, this is really interesting that people are willing to make these decisions. And as you know, shower doors is not necessarily an inexpensive add to a house. I mean, you're usually talking at least $1,000 plus installed. And they were making these decisions on the spot. So we struggled finding a place in Carmel or in that north side area because we couldn't really lease a space and sell fireplaces. Because if we sold fireplaces, we would want them to burn. If they had to burn, we had to have flues. Flues have to terminate to the exterior of a building. There's no landlord in Carmel that's ever going to let us cut a hole in a rubber roof or knock out brick on the side of their walls.
Let alone 15 holes or whatever it might
exactly.
be. Yeah.
So that was always been our obstacle, is how do you recreate that showroom up there to allow people to see the product? Mm-hmm. And then we went into the mode of, so we started doing this iPad thing. And I started thinking about it. I said, the goal is not to sell them something in Carmel. The goal is to get them to move to the west side, let them know what's at the other store. So in 2015, we got a booth at the Indianapolis Home Show, and we put out 3 TVs, little electric fireplaces, so people kind of knew what we were. And we had these iPads set up, and we spent 10 straight days standing there showing people product on these TV screens. And we found 2 things happened. One is we were holding people in the booth 15 to 20 minutes. We could email them the brochures, so they were getting information from us at the time. Mm-hmm. And then we, and they even had a where we could get their information and set up an appointment to do an estimate, that type of thing.
Right.
So we thought, man, this is awesome. We think we have something here. So we started looking around for lease space, rental space. That was very difficult. So we're talking now 2015, and we couldn't find anything. We just couldn't. I remember going over to 37 in Noblesville, about 126th Street. There was a space over there it was 15 feet wide and 60 feet deep. That was the space of this showroom. I'm going, that's going to be ugly. Mm-hmm. And I was going to be right next to a mattress firm and a taco place. And I was going to have to be open 7 days a week. And I was going to have to be open until late. Well, that's not our customer base.
Right.
So out of happenstance, I got a blind email from the Indiana Design Center in Carmel, and they had a space that was available, and they wanted to know if we were interested in leasing. So I went up there and pitched this idea of what we now call our interactive studio, and told them we weren't bringing any product up here. All we needed was power, because we're going to run TVs and we're going to run iPads and we're going to build this thing. And they bought it. That group really is looking to be on the cutting edge of design anyway, as you know, in the building. Mm-hmm. So this concept of them was great. They loved it. So we started, and I went to a good friend of mine, Tom Friesman, and said, okay, you need to design this store. I said, you need to look out and find a store like this. I'm sure there's somebody else that's done this. Go ahead, build this thing and let me know what it's going to look like. So we started researching. We could not find a single company in our industry, in the home goods industry, that had a concept store like this. There were none, and especially none in the fireplace. So Tom designed it to look a little bit like an Apple store, kind of alive. And he did a great job designing it. And we went up there and we have a total of 6 TVs that we can show product all day. We did set up a Google Drive that's loaded with pictures, loaded with installation manuals, brochures. And the funny thing was, we went up there, and it was myself and one of my sales guys. We went up there and started this thing. And for the first 6 months, we didn't have a clue. We had no idea how to sell out of the store, because selling out of the store was a different type of sale. You had no product. You had to capture the customer quickly, or they would leave. Their expectation was to see product.
Right.
So we started it, and we just learned how to sell up there and how to drive people down to the other location. So a close up there is getting someone from Cicero to walk in there, spend 15, 20 minutes with us, and then make sure that they understand or feel like it's worth driving another 35 minutes to see product.
And that's the entire concept of that store, is that you're migrating people from the north side to the west side, and that's the conduit.
The other thing that we didn't anticipate that's really, really turned out to be a great feature is people are not threatened going into that store. We get a lot of people that come in the concept stage, and since there's no product there, since there's really no push to buy anything there, we'll get people that come in 2, 3, 4 times, and they're just developing their ideas. And so it's really nice for us, because we get that piece of the conversation finished before they start going down to Rockville. So it really adds some value there. And we get a lot of people walk in and say, hey, I just have a quick question. 20 minutes later, we've just given them a lot of information on kind of the path that they should take to start their project.
So the other thing that I think has had to happen is you're getting to a different set of relationships up in that building from a design perspective, and just meeting different people that you wouldn't have met before, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. From the designers there that utilize the building, we have forged relationships that we did not have. And even from builder relations, that people that knew us, but really just, again, knew their customers would not travel to the west side. They've started referring us and utilizing us for product.
Interesting. So what are your challenges in today's world? Do you have supply chain issues getting product? Do you have labor challenges, hiring? I mean, just a couple of key things that everyone tends to focus on. How do those affect your world, those 2 issues?
Well, everybody has supply chain issues,
right?
And especially if you're like us in the custom business, where you're ordering specific things to fit a specific application, you're going to run into that.
So what do you, if you're having a conversation with a client and you're positioning them to say, hey, we're having a challenge getting X, it's probably going to be a longer lead time normal. What are the fill in the blank items that you're struggling to get in your world today?
The biggest one we've had is the grills, the built-in grills.
Okay.
I mean, the majority of those are made in California, and the ones that we get, and it's just hard to get anything out of there. The state of California has just struggled. State of Michigan struggled in production, as you know. So it's probably the biggest thing is grill. We are fortunate in that the majority of the products that we sell are made in North America. They're either made in U.S. or Canada. So we've been very fortunate that the supply chains are not as dramatic. Now, components of those products are being made overseas. So it's not like we're free from it. For example, you get a shower door. I could put in a custom 3/8 frameless shower door in less time than what you would call traditionally a stock door that has metal around it. Because a lot of the metal components of the door is coming from China. So the stock door is no longer the stock door.
Mm-hmm.
It's the custom door that becomes more of the stock door. So it's really grills. Fireplaces, we've done pretty well. If you want to get into the weeds, our biggest issue in fireplaces was high efficiency stoves and inserts. And real quickly, so back in 2020, there was a mandate that they changed the regulations on the output on wood stoves and inserts, high efficiency, and they dropped it from 4.0 grams per hour to 2.0. And back in 19, and now the issue with the mandate was you could not sell them past May 14th. So they came out in 2019 and said, you will not be able to sell any of these fireplaces, not quit manufacturing them, which normally what happens. They said you can't sell them. So now we had this wall in front of us as well as everybody else. So the manufacturers wanted to sell as many of these older style units to get them out of their inventory. Mm-hmm. Some of them sold them to Canada and other countries. But as a retailer at the time, I had like 28 of these stoves and inserts in stock and said, okay, I need to unload these first. We actually sold our last one on May 13th. Took us over a year and a half to just get rid of everything because, it's got to fit a certain size. It's got to be, everything's got to be right. So that happened in 20. That was that deadline. Well, the manufacturers had not geared up on the new product before COVID hit. So we have suffered with delays for the last year and a half on stoves and inserts, high efficiency,
meet the requirements
because we never got caught up with it. And then the demand shot up. So, it's kind of like we started just ordering stoves that we thought we would sell and knowing that it's a 14, 18 week lead time. Mm-hmm. And just when we get it, we either have it sold or it sells pretty quick.
It's funny.
So those are the ones the horror stories you hear out in the market, we've not had to deal with. On the labor side, we've also been pretty fortunate. I tell, we hired 6 people this year. Mm-hmm. 3 were filling in positions. 3 were increasing our positions. And I tell them it was our best recruiting class we ever had. We hired 3 high quality people at different positions in different departments. One was in a management position. The others were entry level positions, and they've been awesome. And our existing employees have been awesome. We have just been very fortunate to have people that are comfortable with where they are and they're comfortable with what we're trying to do as a company and have not moved.
I think but that speaks a lot to culture, right? I mean, when you're trying to build that culture where people feel valued, they're rewarded. I think from the outside view that I have, you do a lot to try to grow people into opportunities, right? You're not hesitant at all to take somebody that has a different skill set, bring them in and teach them your widget. But the fact that they're good people and they care makes all the difference in the world, right? Then they can learn that new skill set and apply it.
We learned a long time ago, if we are hiring someone simply because we think they already know how to do what we do, we're wasting our time. Mm-hmm. Because first of all, they're not going to buy into the way we want it done.
Yeah.
And second of all, they're just chasing, money. So we hire obviously based on character first, and we will bring in people that are just good people and people we know. And we have a really good, I've talked to you about this. We have some of our biggest success probably is our referral program with our employees. Our employees have actually referred people in that have been just great employees. And it's a combination of, we do have an incentive pay that we give them, but also the culture, they want people to work there that are like kind people.
Yep.
So they're only referring us people that they value.
Yeah, that's so important because they've got to coexist in that environment, and they're not going to bring somebody in that they wouldn't want to work with every day.
Right.
So that makes a big difference, huge difference. I love the thought behind the referral fee too. You talk a little bit about that, about how you set it up?
Yeah, it was really pretty simple. We just told employees, we said, if you refer somebody to us and we hire them, it's $1,000 and we pay $500 out at 90 days and we pay $500 out at 180. And so it's $1,000 over the first 6 months. And we feel like at the end of 6 months, if they will have a good feel for whether they're going to stay or not, and they have a good feel for us. So the employees love it. They love it because, that we're adding value to the team and they're getting something for their effort.
Mm-hmm. Two more topics. One, talk a little bit about your view of leadership. I'm curious, when you think about leadership with the experiences that you have behind you, as you think about leading your company, what comes to mind?
I would tell people all the time that I feel like I'm a pretty good leader, but I'm a terrible manager. And I think most people put those two things in the same category. And so my initial reaction is I think leadership has to come from the top. It has to set the tone, establish the culture. But one of the key things to being a leader is to allow people to manage that follows that lead. And probably the hardest thing in a small company, including mine, was when you're only 10, 12 people or less, you can't really be only a leader. You have to be a manager as well. And I think that's a really hard thing to do. We have finally got to a place when we hit about 25 employees that we could actually have a structure that would allow me to be less as a manager and more as a leader. But I would tell you with COVID, to me, the one thing I've tried to do as a leader for the most part is create consistency. If you're up and down every day, they're going to be up and down. If you're high and low emotionally, they're going to be high and low emotionally. And I think leadership is more about just being steady and stay focused on what you're trying to get everybody to do.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about you is just in general, your commitment to doing the right thing. So, and I think it's a shared value that I have. At the end of the day, things are going to happen. It's kind of like, okay, shit happens. Let's just fix the problem, move on, make sure the customer's taken care of. Win some, you lose some. I always say going to work every day is like going to the casino, right? Literally.
Yeah.
I'm just going to the casino today. Right. I might come home one evening and say to my wife, bad day at the casino, sweetheart.
Yeah.
And she'll be like, what happened? But it's just something that things happen. But I know, there's times a person's or a company's, their motivations and their intent, they reveal themselves when there's a problem, right? And to me, I've done business with you for 20 years and yeah, we have problems sometimes, but I never worry that you'll fix it or that you'll make it right. And therefore I'll never go anywhere else. That does not mean raise my prices, by the way, because if my clients are listening, I'm going to tell them that you raise my prices and therefore the project is more expensive.
You should raise your allowance.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it is. But I do appreciate the fact that something comes up, you stand behind it, you make it right. And I think that's a key component to having long-term success.
Well, it's funny that I think people underestimate employees' perception of owners and leadership, because I know that employees, one is I've experienced that where you have an owner that is forcing the employees to do what they don't believe is the right thing. Mm-hmm. And so by doing the right thing, you're helping your customers, that's a key piece of your culture in your company. Because if your employees see you trying to take advantage of situations within your customer base, they will assume that you are doing that to them.
That's right. And then immediately you lose trust and respect.
Right.
And as soon as you lose that, you lose them.
And it's similar to, employees understanding that if you're being flexible, understanding, working through problems, they feel comfortable that you'll help them work through their problems.
Yeah.
And so I think that gets back again to that consistency of how you approach it. But I enjoy the leadership aspect. The management side, I just always struggle with.
And is it just getting tied up in the monotony of the details and making sure that things are executed that bothers you? Or is it just the issue? For me, the issue is that never feel like I have enough time, and that's the piece that suffers. Like I feel like I can lead culturally and lead by example of doing the right thing. But damn, they're always waiting on me to do something or give them something to allow them to be successful. I always tell them I'm the roadblock. I'm the kink in the hose. That if you could just get me out of the way, we would operate so much more effectively. And it's never intentional, right? It's just there are so many decisions that need to be made from a managerial perspective every day. Unless I'm sitting there waiting for all of those questions, I feel like I'm a roadblock. Is that how you feel? Because or is it something else about the managerial aspect that bothers you? You touch incrementally more projects in a day, in a week, in a year than I do. I touch fewer projects with many, many details that vary across many different phases. And you touch maybe the same thing 100 times.
I'm going through a really challenging time right now because I am trying to separate myself from that. And I'm trying to move myself into being more of a pure leader, to be a mentor or a coach and help people move forward. And it's hard to do. As you know, it's just really hard to set that tone. But yeah, I mean, ultimately that's what you have to do. You have to set yourself apart. And what I'm doing is I'm telling people, people come to me frequently and I don't let them off the hook. Most owners, and I'm guilty of this all the time, is it used to be I'd sit in my office and they'd line up at my door and I'd roll through there and they'd come in and they'd ask a question. I'd give them the answer on what to do and they'd move on. The next one would come in, ask me the question. I'd tell them what to do and move on. And, my ego was really, really pumped up at that time. I mean, I was the cog in that wheel. I was that guy that they needed. And you're that same way. And so one of the things I've really tried to work on, especially the last 4 to 5 years, is to spread that out. And just whether I agree with them or not, I had to trust people to make decisions and move forward with things. So now when people come to me with something, I don't let them off the hook. I really rarely give them an answer. I usually ask them 2 or 3 questions about the issue, the situation. If they can't answer it, I make them go back and find out more. And so by making them work harder, what I was doing was just I was allowing them to get off the hook. They got an answer from the boss. They didn't have to think about it. They just took off. It was easy for them. They weren't doing their job.
Yeah.
So now I'm more focused on people doing it sounds hard, but having people do their job, which is to come up with the solution and making me more the person that helps them work through it.
It's funny. I've taken a little different approach to get to the same thing over the years. And that is that I encourage them to make the decisions, and I don't ever get mad as long as they can explain to me why they did what they did. And then I know they thought about it. And then I might tell them how I would do it differently the next time. But I really try to push back that idea of just, I trust you, make a decision. You don't need me to make the decision. 9 times out of 10, you probably know more about what you're going to ask me about than anything. You're just looking to hedge that concern for getting in trouble or doing something wrong. And reality is I'm probably not going to get mad at you anyway if you're trying to do the right thing. And if I didn't trust you to try to do the right thing, I probably wouldn't have you doing that job anyway.
Yeah, you and I ended up in the same place.
Yeah.
What I tell people when I ask them about that, I just say, I'm asking these questions to understand why you made this decision and to coach you on the next decision. And that's how I tell people all the time that it's not the decision you make that builds trust with me. It's the process that you've used to make the decision that builds trust with me.
Right.
So it doesn't mean that I agree with every answer you come up with, but if I trust the process you've used, then I'm okay. We move forward.
So one last question that I want to talk about, and it's kind of a big picture cloud in the sky question, but what does success look like for you? What defines success for you today? And maybe as a follow-up, how has that evolved over the years for you? If it has.
So it obviously it has
It
evolved.
obviously has,
It
because
has
now
to evolve.
it has evolved, obviously, because now your ego's got to be fed by something else other than people sitting at your door asking you a million questions.
Yeah, what's funny is it's a great concept. So if I told you it hadn't changed, that means that either I was a genius at a very young age or I'm still stupid. So I'm not going to answer it the way I'm not letting you lead me into that. So yeah, it has changed, and I'll never forget in college. I was an accounting major, and I had a fraternity brother that if he probably didn't drink beer on Sunday night, but every other night, it was a time for him to have fun. And great guy, and we were talking about careers and doing stuff. And I was always, I was in the library, I was doing projects, Not that I didn't have fun, but it was like not nearly as much as he did. And he made a comment to me. He goes, "You just want to be rich." That's what he said to me.
Do you have the poster with like the 5 cars and the nice house?
Yeah.
That said inspiration or whatever.
And I told him at the time, which I don't necessarily agree with now, but I said to him, if you're telling me the way you measure success in business is money, then yes, I want to be rich. Not because I want money, but because I want to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my answer in 1980. Today, my answers, and it was funny. The reason I was a little late coming today was I have a young sales consultant that started with me 6 months ago that wanted to talk to me about some things. He's really a good guy. He graduated from Providence, and I love him because he was a psychology major. This guy,
he's a thinker.
He's a thinker, and he's really a cool guy. And he's in his 20s. And so we were talking about things, and he hit that 6-month wall, came in all energized. Everything was new, challenged. And he hit that 6-month wall, and he's just questioning things. And how does this work? How does that work? And we were talking about ceilings. And I said, my success is, and I told him this, I said, for me, now I measure my success as how productive can I be through other people? That's how I measure my success. If I can take a company and make it extremely successful, very productive through others, then that's success. Most people, their success stops with what they can produce with themselves, what they can do on their own. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of talented people that made a lot of money and created some phenomenal things on their own. But that's not the way I measure success. I measure success as how good can I be through others. And I told him that, and I said, you need to think about that. You're going to hit a ceiling someday, and then one of the ways to break through that ceiling is to work through others to help you. And so I would say today that's the way I measure success.
That's very interesting. See, I always learn something from you.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Huh. I mean, think about it.
No, it's very true.
If you can take other people and elevate them to a level they never even thought they would be able to hit, and provide,
it's very rewarding to grow people and their opportunities. And I get a great deal of enjoyment from those types of things. And I feel like, one of the things I've really tried to do in the last couple of years is invest in my people in different ways than I had before. And at some level, you kind of have to, right? I mean, you're the competition out there. If you're not recruiting your own people, you're recruiting them right out the door to the next company.
Right.
So you've got to do things to let your people know they're appreciated. But I like that. I like that assessment of what success is. Because you're right. I think when we're young, it's can we provide a comfortable living for ourselves? Can we make this thing work? I've jokingly said in the past, when we were in the downturn in that 08, 09, 10, can I survive in business and still be here next year? And then the year after that. And then you kind of get through that and you get into better times like we have today. And you made a comment earlier about getting ready for the next opportunity. Like, we might not need that right now when things are good, but we know, you and I both know it's coming again full circle.
Right.
And the everything will fall off the cliff again. And then my custom builder buddies that are sending me leads now will be remodeling projects again at that point, at some point, and those leads will not come to me like they do today. And and those referrals and things that are very valuable and very appreciated. It's just, that'll change. So at the end of the day, I think your measure of success can't be driven by the economic conditions around you and, it's good times. So I must be successful, and what was bad times in 08. So I must have been a failure at that point. I mean, your ability to adapt and survive in those times is significant.
I think that, one of the things I look at, and, first of all, the material pricing is never going to come back down.
Never.
Ever.
How many times a week do you get asked, should I just wait? Will the prices come back down? I'm like,
right.
They will never come back down.
Exactly.
We still have fuel surcharges from 2006.
Exactly.
And I will never, ever get over the fact when Texas had that 4-day freeze last year, how some of our fuel surcharges went up. The ones that were put in 2006 that never moved when gas came down under $2, they went up at that 4-day freeze because, I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. We'll never
captured.
See. Yeah.
And I think, and it's going to be, I don't think you and I will be around when this whole labor issue turns.
Speak for yourself.
So
no, I'm just kidding.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I think it's a long time because it's a process that has to, it's funny is in the Builders Association in 1998, we were talking about a labor shortage.
Yeah.
And we're still talking about it in 2022, and it's worse than it was in 98.
Yes.
So we do a great job of acknowledging issues. I don't think we've done a great job addressing it, but and some of that's out of our, the industry's control. But I think that's the other thing. If you want to scale business, it's the quality of the employee now, not the quantity. And the other thing is I'm really pushing, as you know, on technology. You need technology to scale a business.
Yeah.
And the third thing you need is outsourcing. We can't do it all. We can't hire everybody. We can't do it. And you and I have talked about this. Outsourcing is, we're outsourcing. You and I share a marketing firm, Collective Alternative, which has been awesome for me.
Yeah.
And they outsource. We outsource our payroll services. That's not just payroll data entry, but it's actually a PEO, professional employment aid organization that actually provides us human resources, all the insurances, workman's comp. It allows us to scale that, and they handle that for us. We outsource our IT stuff. We have, probably 15, 16 different computers and servers and all this other stuff. And we have an IT firm that monitors and manages that every day. And those are the types of things we outsource. Our OSHA, we use a firm here in Indianapolis that's a safety firm that does all its consulting and makes sure that we're monitoring all our OSHA guidelines. So I don't know how a company that's trying to scale, especially our size, that can do all those things without doing outsourcing. And an outsource, I would tell people that would be a great company to start, is some kind of an outsourcing, a niche that would create an outsourcing.
Now, see, product. I thought we were going to be done, and now we're not done. So now this is going to continue.
Well, you said
on.
There was a last question. I just wanted to answer.
Now we're not done because I'm going to dig into something that you said and something that I struggle with for the world to hear our conversation, because this is probably going to go worldwide when it's all done.
I think it'll end up being a Netflix series myself.
It'd be short-lived.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't outsource any of your installation, and I minimally outsource it because I'm so protective of the customer experience. Mm-hmm. But how can you say what you just said and then not justify outsourcing some of the service-related things to be able to grow the footprint and expand the installation services? Because that's something that I really struggle with personally. Mm-hmm. I would be more than happy to outsource more of it if I could find people that cared enough to do it the way that we want to do it. So I feel that constraint just in terms of people that we put in somebody's house, that they'll carry themselves the right way, that they'll behave the right way, that they'll do the quality of work that we would do, that I don't question internally. You don't outsource that installation service and you sell it as a branded item, but then you just talk to me about outsourcing everything else. So is that really the key, that you're outsourcing everything else so that you focus only on that? As
everybody's a producer.
Yeah.
Everybody working day to day is focused on the production of our product.
Okay, there you go.
And these other are things that need to be done, but you don't want to take away staff and time to do it.
I asked you that question because I had a conversation with Curtis Rector about a month ago.
Okay.
And it was, we were just having the conversation that I'd made the comment that not his specifically, but a company like his or a middle market builder should buy us, like should buy my remodeling company, because they capture that client on the front end and at the right price point, and their efficiencies are so good with framing and drywall and some of those trades that are in and out, that they could have a significant advantage in the marketplace. My remodeling margins are already solid relative to new construction margins, just inherent because of the industry and the business, right? But I still don't have scale in those things. And so I don't do all the basements that I could do. I don't do all the additions that I could do because I'm not sitting around. I don't have custom framers sitting there every day giving me $3 a square foot pricing for an addition that they're going to knock out in 3 days. Right? We're going to build it ourselves over the course of 3 weeks instead of 3 days. And so some of that scale changes. But I asked him, how would you scale it? Like, what would you do? And he said that he used to remodel and that it's a really difficult challenge, a difficult question to answer, primarily because the customer, when you're working in their home, expects you there every day. And if you outsource it and they don't deliver and they don't show up and they're not there every day, then the economies of scale that you would get go away. But he thought the answer was that you have a staff of people that you could always jump in and do something when somebody lays you down and keep the project moving and then build that scale. And I know there are a number of companies out there that will just sub everything. I think you just lose that touch and that experience, that client experience. So when somebody uses us, I'm disappointed if they're not calling us in 2 or 3 years to do the next thing. And by and large, that's how we've established our relationship, right? Or our reputation, I'm sorry, is you do a good job, you do what you say you're going to do. They gain full trust in the people that are in your house. And then a couple of years later, when they come back and peel the Band-Aid off to do another project, they just call you back and say, hey, we want to do another bathroom now. Or we want to do this. But I just think it's interesting because their biggest challenge in that new construction side, especially when you start to get in that custom world, is good labor and especially some of that punch and some of that quality. But like when Ferguson bought Reese to bring that kitchen business in-house, that was a very interesting move, right? They bought a line of business that have served them incredibly well. And but that scale is the key. It's just an interesting concept.
Yeah. First of all, if I ever say something that is in disagreement with Curtis, I would believe Curtis.
Yeah.
He's a really smart guy.
He's a very smart guy.
And
he's a big thinker.
He is. He really does. He's done a great job. I think the two things you got to look at, Jeff, though, in scaling a business doesn't mean that I'm going to end up with 150 employees. You know, it could be scaling the businesses. And really what my goal is to increase my revenue without increasing the number of employees.
Sure.
So scaling could be used in different ways. And it's not about, like, we've done a really good job of controlling growth. I mean, you hear people who grow 20, 30% a year. They're bragging about all that. Well, first of all, half that growth is just price increases. So they haven't done any more. They just, but we've always felt like our best growth rate is about 15%. And we've done that consistently for several years now and continue to be in that range of growth to be able to control it and continue to move up. I think that some of the things you'd have to look at in scaling the business is Ferguson and those guys can do those things because they don't provide that labor element. I think the restriction in scaling the business is the fact that your company and mine are alike in that we want to control the installation aspect of the company.
Right. We want to control that user experience.
Right. So that's our brand. And you accept that as our brand. Curtis was not, when he started Arbor and built Arbor, that was never his brand. His brand was to produce a cost-effective, affordable house that's well built in a short period of time to serve the masses. And so it never had the element of Curtis being hands-on, his management team meeting with customers. I mean, it was just more of the brand.
Yeah.
And I think you and I are just having similar brands in our business, which makes our dialogue, our conversations really, really pretty close together on point because we're looking at the same issues.
Yeah. And I'm not one, when I talk about those things, I'm not one driven by revenue. I actually would want nothing else other than to not do, I don't want to do $10 million a year and have the headaches of,
right.
I don't want that. And if you'd asked me before this conversation, you gave such a good definition of success that makes mine seem sad at the moment. But, my definition of success would have been placing a higher value on my time. And I had another conversation on another podcast a little bit about that, so I won't go into detail. But just, I think as your values change over as you get older, time becomes more of a premium. It becomes more of an asset in how you look at things. And so the idea of trying to scale this to something that, like, I'm in my young 20s and need to conquer the world, that's not it. I'm more concerned about doing a good job for people and them knowing it, and that it just grows organically so we can control the growth anyway. And I don't care exactly where the revenue takes us. If my criteria for doing a project for people is, are you nice? And can we be successful doing the project? Literally, that's the criteria. And now the third element is, and are you willing to wait for us? Because of just the length of time of getting product and projects that we have in the pipeline. And if you're willing to wait for us because we'll do a good job, then I don't care what the project is. If I don't think we can be successful, I'll probably politely excuse us from it. But those are my criteria. Quite honestly, I mean, both. I made it sound crazy when I said it back then. I've enjoyed the fact that there's been so much change and so many shifts in our industry over the last 20 years. I think that creates opportunities for companies. Yeah.
And when you have a market shift, it creates, and so for me, I've always enjoyed it. I would tell you that I'm looking, I probably still work more hours than most people in my company. And my wife thinks I'm nuts, but I enjoy this. I love working and trying to figure this stuff out. And I love the environment I'm in. So, I told my wife, I said, why, if there's nothing I would rather do than this, why would I retire or try to do something else? Mm-hmm. And you and I, me more than you, I'm hitting that stage, especially the last year or two with COVID, is I've got more and more friends, more and more people I've known my entire life that are saying, I'm done with this. I'm putting this off. I've had it, and my wife's going, well, they're retiring. And my whole comment is, but they didn't like their jobs. They didn't like what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so I'm having a blast right now. It's not easy and it's not always fun, but the challenge is worth it for me.
Yeah. I think when I think about time, I don't necessarily think how many vacations can I go on, or how can I get in the office, at 11 and get out of there by 2. I think of it as my motto for this year is slow down to speed up, right? Like I'm constantly taking on water or wanting to, because of trying to be a pleaser. I'm trying to please everybody. And yes, I'll talk to you about that. And yes, I'll talk to you about your project. And yeah, go ahead and schedule them for 2:00 and go ahead and schedule them for 3. And but I'm just drowning myself, right?
Right.
And so that distinction between being a leader and a manager, I always say I'm trying to be everything to everybody. And then at the same time, I'm ended up being nothing to anybody at certain times. And it's not a comfortable feeling. So to me, time is really an element of really being able to have more time to be a better resource and be successful, help other people be successful. Is, to your point, I think is a very good way to measure it. I'm going to steal it actually. So thank you.
You can take it.
Okay.
I mean,
No, I appreciate that. Anything we didn't talk about today that you just feel like you need to get off your chest? Don't want to leave you hanging or feel like you left here and you didn't get to talk about world peace or
I think
anything.
what I enjoyed about this is you've given me a lot more time than my therapist and you're charging me a lot less. So this was very valuable to me as well.
Good. I'm glad we could meet some of your needs.
Yeah,
so
it's good. No, I appreciate you having me on. And like I said, I was listening to some of the podcasts yesterday and I think you do a great job with this. It's a voice that needs to be heard. And you're doing a great job of bringing it.
Well, I appreciate it. I get a lot out of the conversations just learning. And so it stimulates something in me because like you, I mean, I'm constantly wanting to learn and pick the brains of other people as well. But I also think there's probably a gap in the marketplace where can somebody go and without going into a showroom in their daily travels to and from work, I'm sure if they stay awake at the wheel and they don't fall asleep from this conversation, somebody stands to learn a lot about fireplaces and shower glass that they didn't know before this conversation, right? And so if you can just now all of a sudden, we've got a tool to send somebody to where they can understand a little bit more than they might have. And it just can become a small element of their research through what I'm hoping to be trusted people having a good conversation to guide homeowners. So it's mutually beneficial. I think, if we can provide value to homeowners and I can learn something along the way to kind of pique some of my curiosity and pick the brains of others, that's a win. So I've enjoyed the process. I told Wes previously, I don't like the podcast where I sit and talk to myself. So I like the interaction piece. And now clearly, I mean, you've got a face for YouTube, so I'm sure you're going to be all over the internet here shortly. We'll probably be posting clips on social media, and you'll drive the numbers up. I want you to know before you walked in here, at one point, we were the 151st ranked podcast in the home and garden category in the world.
Wow.
World or nation? We don't even know. It was 151st. We are clearly moving up the ranks after this one. There's zero doubt in my mind.
I think you can get
145, 144 is what I'm hoping for in the next couple months.
If I moved you to 149, you may not be happy, but I'd be happy.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We just
need it. We just need to monetize it. I'm just kidding.
Thanks,
all right.
Jeff.
Thank you so much again. I really enjoyed the time with you. And I enjoy the friendship and the interaction that I can have offline with you over the course of the years. It's very helpful for me. As individual business owners, we don't often have a lot of resources where you can just pick up a phone and call somebody and say, hey, I'm dealing with this. Let me bounce this off you. What do you think? But you've always been that resource. So I appreciate that very much. So thank you. And thank you for doing this.
No problem.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and have a great day.
Do you have a home remodeling question? Or would you like to know what the best remodeling plan would be to fit your lifestyle? Submit your questions now at lifestylegroup.com, and we may answer them on a future episode. Stay tuned to see what advice the Lifestyle Group has for you on the next episode of the Do You Plan podcast.